All right, traders, this is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Wednesday, March 31st. So end of day month, or I'm sorry, end of month today, and end of quarter. And we have one more day of the trading week left, which is a new month, a new quarter, which starts tomorrow, and then we're off on Friday. But it does seem like this was already a full week. A lot of things going on, a lot of whippy moves throughout the week, and then of course the end of the day just kind of lived up to what we experienced all through March. A little bit of not an easy close, a bit of a fade through the end of the day. We can kind of see what happened here right around about with 30 minutes to go. Heavy MOC imbalance for the day. Again, a lot of these institutions are tied to the close. A lot of mutual funds, they need the closing print, so that's why there's so much trading that happens at the end of the day. That's just one market participant, but these a lot of funds, they need the closing print, right? That's what their NAV is struck off. So, for example, mutual funds, right? They are struck off the close. That's called net asset value. So very different than an ETF, for example, right? So when you submit your order to buy or sell in an ETF, right? You only get one price. That's the end of day price. So that is why there is so much buying and selling that happens, what's known as market on close, MOC, and especially these month end and particularly quarter end. So everybody trying to do stuff all at the end of the day. So that's just how it is. Take a look at the volume in SPY. There's 12 million shares that traded there at the end of the day. What's the market value of 12 million shares? Well, I can do that in my head. No, I cannot. 396.33 was the close. Yeah, it's about $4.7 billion, in the last few minutes of the day, and that doesn't include all the other orders that were traded, but that's just SPY. That's not even everything else, individual names and so forth. So again, a lot of flows going on. You could see for Qs, still a lot of volume, but not as much. But clearly there was some selling to do. So that wraps up the month and the quarter, and really we'll talk about the price action today. There were some nice things that went on today, which we really haven't seen too much of. Just a little bit more appetite in the growth area. We saw that begin yesterday. And one of the things that I talked about in yesterday's video was there was just much more of an appetite. There was call buying that was happening in just areas that we hadn't seen before. I talked about CrowdStrike, for example, and that was enough for me to get involved, to get pushed into into a trade. And a lot of times the option flow will basically just give you for me, it gives me an idea. I never read into the flow and say, oh, that must mean they know something. We know over time that the majority, there's a smoke screen that happens, right? There's a lot of orders that don't amount to anything. It doesn't matter how aggressive they sweep the order. They don't amount to anything. But then there's a lot of orders that do work too. So you have to kind of plug them into your own system, think about it independently. And for me, it made sense. There's a lot of growth names that have kind of just been straight down. So we got a bounce in many of them, and I took off my whole trade in CrowdStrike. I was happy with a quick gain of 4%, and some other trades that I had on, because I don't think that this is trending. There's a level to trade against, which I thought was nice. We came back and we double tested. So maybe a double bottom. I put on a little bit of stock just to see if we do get a little bit of a follow through move. But it's going to be, I think what we're going to begin to see, if I had to guess, in the month of April, is maybe some areas begin to separate. If you go back to what we experienced with 2020, many growth names did very well, and a lot of them moved as a group together, like the whole software group moved together. So, perhaps we start to see a little bit of a separation, where the leaders will shine and some of the names that, are lesser quality might not come back all the way. So, I think that's going to be really interesting for the month. I think also for the month of April, we'll see if it's going to be much more of a diverse, approach. Right. And I think that we're already seeing that. I think what we're seeing is not going to just go away. But, I think, some of the tells that we've seen, like for example, the industrials. Right. I don't think like everybody's going to jump out of industrials and go straight into software. There's just too many things that have changed. Right. Obviously the country's reopening. Right, so there are a lot more things, a lot more dynamics than what was going on, in last year. So that's my view. The home builders, did not really perform today. A few of these areas that have been hot did not really perform today. The semiconductors, I thought, was kind of the story of the day. And I really took advantage of that. I've been in applied materials, in and out of applied materials. I made some money with it on Friday, and then I jumped back in on this day. That was Monday, and so I was very happy to see this gap up. Right, so here I go taking targets. And by the way, everything that we're going through in this video is for information purposes only. I'm not giving out any advice, recommendations, anything like that. We'll go through some more. Usually I go through the macro stuff first, but let me go through some of the trades because I think it was a bit more in focus today. But yeah, here I go taking targets in applied materials. And I just decided sometimes I like to take the whole trade off and then kind of just see what it does for the rest of the day and see if I want to go back into it. It's funny that when you take off a trade, right, you then kind of think a little bit more openly about whether or not you would buy it again, right? Because sometimes you take the trade off and it comes in a little bit and you're like, hey, I could get back in a little bit cheaper if I want to, right? So I think this is just going to be like, for me, like an area that I'm going to be focusing on, whatever has strength, and is trending. I like to basically trade it, come back to it when it dips, just even this little dip, right? Because I took profits on Friday, right? But even this little dip. So I think that's going to kind of be the name of the game for some areas of the market that are becoming, market leaders. And Lamb Research, I looked at this at the end of the day. It kind of got a little bit rejected here at the top of value. I'm still in Texas Instruments, right, which made a new high today. And I did add a new one, this ENTG, and I took a target in this one. Right, so I really didn't want to add much risk into today's strength. I wanted to kind of just see what was going on. This TIGR worked very well. This was a new trade entered into today. I did my homework last night. I went through a lot of charts. I know that this FUTU has been strong, and it was strong again today, up another 15%. Big move, and I think we talked about FUTU in yesterday's video. I know we do several videos a day, so sometimes I get them mixed up. But I thought this was, here is my signal. Right. So again, having an alert set, but notice over this week, this bottom of the value area, and I get questions all the time. How do you use the market value? How do you use the MarketWebs to trade? Well, here's a great example, right? Something that is really obeying the price, can't get in here, rejected. Once it finally makes the move on some volume, right? And I even jumped in, I'm on the hourly chart, so you have to wait a full hour before the bar closes. But I was in this TIGR, this was right at 9:40. So I did have to wait 20 more minutes, but I just thought it was doing something different, making a nice move on volume. And then look at the volume on this, right? So I took off this trade, so I got everything that I was looking, just for basically a day trade. Because I had a lot of other positions to manage, but I think I got out of this one for 17.30 and paid 15.28. So that's a nice trade, and I'll be watching those tomorrow. Clearly the FUTU has a bit more momentum to it. What else? And then just a lot of other things like the MT that I put on yesterday. I was able to take a target in that. I mentioned CrowdStrike. I got out of this FBHS, which I've been holding for a while. And then when you have a nice day like this, you can get out of some things that have been just kind of sitting on your balance sheet. Because I like to start fresh, going in, not, completely unwinding all positions, but, if I can get out of a couple of positions that are just not working right, so be it. So, real nice trading day, overall. We caught this Microsoft headline too very early, before it was on Twitter, about them getting a contract. So nice move here. Notice this did not get outside of value. So again, Valuer is giving you a lot of say into how you're going to take profits. Went up to 237, actually got a little bit higher, but notice the closing bar did not get above value. So a lot of hype on that headline, but notice it did not get above 237. So interesting. Let's go through a couple. What else did I? So I didn't mention the performance, but the Qs were up 1.5%. SPY was up 40 basis points. Again, giving back a lot of those gains there in SPY at the end of the day. Bonds were down again today. If you look at the biggest move in sectors, blockchain stocks did very well. Biotech, which was really nice to see, and we did see some call buying a little bit yesterday, a little bit today too in the XBI ETF. Notice the VPOC taken out. Now there was another one that was down here, but where did this thing finish? Up 4%. So usually, and I've talked about this before in other videos, but so it has to start somewhere, right? In terms of a recovery from some of the more higher beta growth areas in the market. Biotech, and this is and I watch this ETF over IBB because this has more small caps in it. It moves faster. You'll find that this biotech ETF will lead moves, right? So I mentioned that I've talked about this in previous videos. And I've given this example 3 or 4 other times, but biotech was the first area, high beta, to break down before anything else did, right? And that was all the way back on it made its top on 2.9, and that was about a few days to a week before the S&P made its high, right? So will this be able to follow through? So I would like to see more green bars coming out of the biotech ETF, more recovery. I think what you're also going to find, and we talked about this in the Tribeca Trade Group chart session that we do and Q&A session that we do at 1 o'clock Mondays and Wednesdays. But we talked about how a lot of charts, a lot of names, when they made a new, a lower low than this, closing lower low, the RSI did not, right? So there was a lot of what we refer to as bullish divergences, right? Normally what happens is that the RSI will also make a new low. So the fact that it didn't, right, is what's called a divergence, right? Price made a new low, but the RSI did not. And if you look through some names, right, if you look at SE, which had a nice day today, similar concept. Now SE definitely took out, the early March lows. So and look at the RSI here. So same thing. This made a higher low here. So that's a nice divergence. So again, we'll kind of see where things, if things can kind of build from here, right? We've talked about Twilio too. That had a nice day, but same concept. Made a new low, but the RSI made a higher low. So really, really nice, divergences. So let's go back to the indices just for a second. So where does this leave the Qs for coming into the new month? Well, we're going to have a new value area. So tomorrow you'll see this value area lit up. Again, it's the price action based on the last period. So the price action for this value area is based on all the March volume, price, and of course the time, which is a month, right? So that's why this becomes very significant, because we're using all the data from this month to provide for this. So we're really not there yet. This is the first candle out of consolidation. Notice where we stalled before. All right. So I would say, if you got very excited about today's price action, I would in a sense, kind of curb your enthusiasm. Give it a chance to kind of build. And we still don't have a close over the 50-day moving average, right? That is a big confirmation indicator, and we're not there yet. So if you feel like you missed out on some trades today, because it's funny when it happens, everything moves. You're not going to be able you're not going to be able to get every trade, and you also really didn't miss much because we still don't have really a confirmation that the Qs are kind of out of that. Right? And again, we use the Qs more to kind of look at growth. We can look at IWF too, right? That's the Russell 1000 growth ETF, but that's not above the 50-day moving average either, right? And that's not going to be above value to start the month either. So there's a lot more work that needs to take place technically in the growth area. Now the SPYs, I view as pretty positive. Right. So again, the way I will communicate this to you guys who are listening is if you could be a little bit diverse and get your mind 100, out of everything has to be growth, you're going to do much better in this game. Because the S&P to me looks like it could, advance and start to take out. It looks like it's going to open up right inside value, but again, it won't take much. And I think it's very positive the way that the S&P looks right now. So that level to watch, and I'll know it for tomorrow, but I think it's going to be right around 39.72. So I think that you're going to, again, I'm just noting what I'm seeing so far. What we've seen so far in 2021, and I just think it's going to be a much more diverse market. So if you can't make adjustments to what the new market in 2021 is going to be like, you're going to have a tough time for the rest of the year. Now, I wanted to speak positively about that too, as I did, I think, in Friday's video. Right, this is just the first quarter of the year that's behind us. Right, so I was down for the month of March. Not it wasn't a horrific month for me, but it wasn't a great month. I made too many mistakes, right? And we do that as traders, right? We're not perfect. So if you made a couple too many mistakes in the month of March, it's okay. But what you want to do is correct those mistakes. You don't want to be making the same mistakes over and over, right? So it's one of the things that I tell traders all the time. You have to adjust to what the market is giving you, right? If you made a whole bunch of money trading short-term options last year, that's great. But that's not really the market that we have this year, right? So, unless things drastically change. That's really the key to this game, in my opinion, is to continue to evaluate, tweak your trading plan, and be able to adapt to what the market gives you. You cannot stay rigid and stubborn. And the reason why I go over these points is because I see traders who just want to do the same thing all the time on Twitter. Right? They're looking at the same names. There's a couple sites out there that will basically look to see what the most frequently names that are being talked about on Twitter, and it's all the same names usually. So so number one, that's troubling that people are just continuing to look at the same names over and over, that they can't branch out. But number two, you could use that as a little bit of your edge, right? You could kind of outperform people. If you are looking at more of the overall universe of stocks and being open to different areas of the market, you're most likely going to outperform if the market kind of stays, how it's been working 2021. So the last thing that I wanted to say about that is kind of the analogy that I gave on Friday, and I gave it earlier today too, is that I like to talk about sports a lot of times when I'm when I'm comparing trading a little bit. It's just a good comparison. But one of the things is we're done with the first quarter, just like in football. They play 4 quarters, right? If you did not have a great first quarter, well, you got 3 other quarters to make it up and to basically to win the game, to have a really nice year. You got to put together, you got to change your game plan a little bit. If your opponent is doing different things than what the game plan that you originally brought in to the game, then you have to make adjustments. If not, if they're outsmarting you, or if you're getting outsmarted in the market and you don't adapt to it, then you're probably not going to win. Okay, so that's the main thing. And I would say an important thing is, right? So again, by the way, if you had a nice month, congratulations to you. If you did pretty well, you executed properly, awesome, because I think it was a more difficult environment. On the other hand, if you didn't, do you want to examine, what happened? It's an important step in the process to evaluate and to improve. It's not one of those things where, geez, I just want to get to the month of April and I want to forget about everything in March. No. What you want to do is dissect what happened, right? And figure out where you made your mistakes. I know, for example, I've already done that process and I know what I need to improve on. And I'll give you a couple examples. I carried too many positions when we had chop, right? I probably over traded a little bit too much. Past months, most of 2020, I did a really good job with like not having a lot of excess positions on, so that when we got to the end of a monthly, monthly expiration, option expiration, I would have very little positions on for that expired worthless. I could tell you for March, I had a few positions on that expired worthless. Very uncharacteristic of me. So, like I said, I mentioned this in the member video earlier. You need a little bit of a slap in the face to rearrange your trading plan a little bit. So that's my thoughts. Again, I talk a lot about strategy in these videos because, believe it or not, psychology, it's not just all looking at charts and pure trading. It's a lot of investor psychology too. All right, guys. So overall, what else was there anything else that I wanted to mention? Micron, it looks like they had a good quarter. Let's see if they're still up here. They are. They're up just a little bit. Western Digital saw a lot of calls today. What else? Western Digital looks like it's around flat. There's a lot of, I think, July calls that went up. What else in terms of options? There's a lot of option activity today. A lot of things that had. Mara was another one that was very strong today. A lot of the blockchain stocks. I think Ethereum went out close to the highs, right? So very close to breaking out is this Ethereum. So the one area that you can trade is this blockchain ETF. It's not out to new highs. I also like this Silvergate, but I think this Mara is probably looks the strongest. Nice volume on this. All right, guys. So much more to go through. I think we'll kind of leave it there because the video is about 22 minutes. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other setups, right? So those are mainly we'll talk more about those for members. That's in our charts setups channels in Slack. Guys, have a great night and great finishing up the quarter with you guys, and look forward to onto the second quarter of 2021, guys. Good luck. Really nice day today overall. And relax. Give yourself a little bit of a pat on the back. Have a drink. Do some exercise. Do something for you, because this was not an easy quarter, and there's going to be a lot to build on from this. All right, guys. Have a great night.